Family trauma, dysfunctional relationships, cultish behavior, but the most important question is,
why does everyone look like an Easter egg?
Netflix's latest limited series, Sirens, has dropped, and I'm here to break down and discuss the final episode, but also share my overall thoughts of the previous episodes and talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about the series in this spoiler breakdown review. With that said, put on your best Easter clothes, and as Kiki would say, hey. To you all, full spoilers ahead. This episode, which was titled Siren Song, opens with a harrowing nightmare, one that I would imagine is a recurring nightmare for Simone, which offers a glimpse into her traumatic past, that being the devastating memory of her mother's unaliving and attempting to take her own daughter's life. Now, this opening scene is a reminder of the underlying darkness and the hints of the emotional vulnerabilities that ultimately led Simone to Michaela in the first place. As Simone wakes up to the face of her older sister, who's always been there for her during the most difficult times of her life, we have to remember the last time the sisters saw each other, which was the last episode, Simone accused Devon of using her caretaking role as a crutch, which to me is one of the central themes that I found very compelling to watch throughout the 5 episodes. Most, if not all, of the main characters all used people, especially those who were close to them, in order to gain something out of them, and in return, they would hold that over them and use that act of kindness as leverage to make themselves feel better about their own lives. Now, throughout the first few episodes of this show, there were countless moments of foreshadowing of either someone having been or would be falling off the cliff at some point, and we finally saw that happen at the end of episode 4 with Ethan. Now, Ethan's cliff fall resulted in severe injuries, but not death. Now, on a side note, I'm a big fan of Glenn Howerton. I used to watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia all the time, and there were definitely moments where I felt that Glenn's character Ethan was definitely giving off Dennis vibes, especially with him being in love with Simone, who Ethan had to be at least 20 years older than her just to begin with. Now, the DeWitt sisters have been mostly at odds from the beginning of the show, but we get this brief moment of maturity from both of them as Simone apologizes for her hurtful words that she used the night before, and surprisingly, Devon acknowledges the truth in some of Simone's allegations. Now, here is where we finally discover what led to Devon messaging Simone Siren at the start of the show, as Devon tells Simone how she had hit a breaking point with their father, who was experiencing a moment of memory loss, and Devon snapped and was afraid she was gonna hurt him and really needed Simone's help, which was really the driving force to Devon traveling 17 hours to find her sister on the island to begin with. Now, despite her ex almost dying, Simone is still under the impression that she's still getting that new promotion from her boss Kiki, not knowing that she knows about the kiss she shared with her husband. Now, Simone's in really good spirits. She's wanting to spread that good luck to her sister, as she suggests that they put their father in a proper care facility so that Devon can take a break, and Simone even agreed to cover the cost with her thought to be believed new pay bump. As we see the little sister giving big sister some encouraging words by telling Devon to accept Morgan's boat trip and say goodbye to their days of consistently being stressed of caring about their father.
Your life is about to get amazing.
Now, let's briefly talk about the title of the series, Siren, which itself carries significant weight, resonating on multiple levels. Initially, Siren serves as a code word between the sisters signaling distress. Now again, Devon's early on message of Siren to her younger sister was her breaking point while taking care of her father. However, the title also invokes the classic mythological creature of a siren, which was known as a creature of captivating beauty and deadly allure, which to me has a deeper meaning within itself in context of the show, as it can be used as a duality that reflects the complex nature of the female characters, particularly Michaela, Simone, and even Devon, each embodying aspects of both attraction and potential danger. Now, you look at someone like Michaela, who in my eyes was this enigmatic socialite who represents the most overt embodiment of the siren archetype. Her lavish lifestyle and magnetic personality drew someone in like Simone into her orbit, promising a world of unimaginable opportunities. Now, for someone like Simone, who has struggled with the emotional weight of her family trauma, Michaela's world offered an escape and a chance to reinvent herself and finally achieve the success that she craved. Now, looking at both the sisters, who also have their own elements of being looked at as a woman siren, as we see how they both have alluring ways of attracting men and causing them both pain and pleasure, as we've seen throughout this series. Now, back at the Kell's estate, it's DEFCON 1, as Michaela has the staff packing up all of Simone's belongings without a reasoning to why amongst the crew. As we see Jose and Patrice have no idea what's going on as they receive a breaking news text that all of Simone's boxes are going to Goodwill to be donated. As Patrice and Jose are beyond thrilled as they take the news as a celebration that the terror and the horror known as Simone has officially gotten fired for now. As we see the rest of the staff learns the news and celebrate like it's the Super Bowl again for now. Now, something that really stood out to me in this moment was the perception that these characters had for one another. Like, I wondered if the staff would have treated Simone differently if they knew how she was raised, or if Simone would have treated the staff better if she respected them more versus the way she treated them on Michaela's behalf. Now, back at the hospital, Peter and Simone get another moment to have yet another awkward conversation, especially after the kiss, as Peter apologizes for welcoming her neglectful father into his home after learning about what Bruce has done to her in her past. Now, I have to mention this now since we're talking about Peter. This kind of bothered me while watching the show that the Kells never knew Simone's full story. I say that because we're led to believe that they would have most likely done an extensive background check on their employees, especially one who's going to be as close to them as Simone. But also the fact that Peter is a CEO of a security company. Now, granted, I'm sure Simone's full history isn't public knowledge, but still, people like the Kells with their financial status would have and could have known more about who they hired, not knowing she had a sister and what happened to her mother and being in a foster care system was kind of a big deal that I thought that they kind of missed out on, which again, just didn't make that much sense to me. Now, meanwhile, we see Morgan dropping off Devon back at the guest house, but before leaving, she shares the good news with him about accepting his offer to go travel with him to Palm Beach. Now awake and heavily medicated, Ethan is thankful he'll be making a full recovery and happy to see his buddy Peter is here, but he is pissed to see Simone is there and immediately blames her for pushing him off of the cliff. Now, Peter steps in to calm him down and stands up for Simone against Ethan's wild allegations and blames his outburst for the heavy medicated dosage. Now, I have to admit, after what Simone does at the end of this episode and seeing this more cold side of her, I'm starting to think that maybe she could have possibly pushed Ethan off of the cliff. Can't help but to think of what Ray said a couple episodes ago when he was talking about how Simone is known as basically being a man-eater and ruining lives and may have had something to do with her ex overdosing. So again, I beg the question, do you all think that it's possible that Simone could have thrown or pushed Ethan off of that cliff? We see Peter and Simone arriving back to the house as Kiki watches from afar, awaiting to share the news about Simone. Now, Simone is strangely greeted by the very happy and excited staff who are all together to welcome her as they're all anticipating her oncoming firing. Now, Simone finds Kiki and immediately the vibes are off as Simone is ready to take her place in rehearsals for the gala, but she's told by Kiki to go to her room. Now, in her room, she finds all of her things have been boxed up, but she also finds the picture that was left behind by Kiki of her and Peter kissing. The look right here in her face says it all, as she knows her career and this new life that she built is now officially over. Now, during the rehearsals, we previously learned that Peter wasn't cheating on his wife this whole time, but instead he was spending time with his estranged kids and recently told Kiki, and she seemed okay with him being around them more. As Peter drops the news on Kiki that he invited his kids to a gala without her knowledge, but she tries to play it cool even though you can tell that she wasn't happy about the news. Now, back in Simone's room, Kiki confronts her as Simone begs for her to try to understand the context of what happened, but Kiki feels betrayed by not only her assistant, but her best friend, and now she sees her as a threat to not just only her husband, but secretly to her status as Mrs. Kell.
You are my best friend, and now you're a threat to my marriage, and you've put everything that I have built at risk, and so now you have to go.
Kiki, please.
Jose will give you the termination papers and the updated NDA to sign in the car, and we will never speak to anyone about this again.
Kiki takes Simone's phone and tells her she's sorry as she leaves her with Jose to leave and never return. Now, in a way, even though the circumstances are astronomically different on every single level, but on a certain level, I would imagine that Simone's experiencing in this moment some type of connection to losing Michaela, aka Kiki, as his motherly figure type, and feeling like another mother has let her down without her control. I do wonder if things would have changed if Simone would have immediately told Kiki about the kiss. Would she have believed that Simone wasn't the instigator in that situation? Or would she have just taken Peter's side because she doesn't want to lose this lifestyle? Or would she have sided with Simone because this could have helped her in a divorce and getting the things that she wanted? Now, speaking of control, Devon's nerves are out of control as she's nervous to tell her father that she'll be gone for a month with Morgan. But surprisingly, Bruce takes the news very well and encourages his daughter to go ahead and he'll be fine for the month that she's gone, but he mistakenly calls Devon Simone, thinking that he was speaking to Simone during this conversation.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Now, to make things even more interesting, we see Bruce and Devon discover their time on the island is over as Devon learns that Simone's been fired. But before heading to the ferry, we see Devon gets the call from the police on Ray's whereabouts in the drunk tank. Now, Peter eventually learns about Simone's firing, and even though he acted like he didn't know why, I feel like deep down he had to have some type of inkling that it had to do with the kiss. Now, he pulls Kiki aside to address her, and she plays coy about the situation and says that she fired Simone because of theft. Kiki claims that Simone stole her earrings and she can't be trusted. Now, to me, the earrings being stolen was being used as a metaphor in this conversation for Simone taking something to Kiki's and that obviously being Peter in this situation. As we watch Peter and Kiki speak indirectly when she tells Peter this.
She's a wonderful heart, and the truth is I love her, but I don't get to have her, do I, Pete? We don't always get to have what we love.
Now, in the midst of all these revelations and firing and shenanigans, we get an unexpected admission from Bruce as he's speaking to Simone one-on-one while Devon is trying to get Ray out of prison. Now, Bruce tells his daughter, who he hasn't had a one-on-one discussion with in over 10 years, that he wants to remember things that mattered, but he forgets them. But he does remember the things he doesn't want to remember, such as the actions towards Simone when she was little. Now, he goes on and tells her about this time the police were called to get her, and when they arrived, they question if he even remembered that she was there, and there were many times that he would shut the door on his little daughter, Simone, even when she was calling out for help. But during this, we can see that Simone is still in complete shock after the firing, and she's just numbed this entire conversation, and she's trying to ignore the fact that her father is mentally taking her back and reliving the worst times of her life. Now, this conversation obviously didn't go well, especially after Bruce said that they're going to go back home together, just the two of them, because Devon's leaving, and the thought of that just frightens Simone as we see her in the streets running away and heading to the only place she called home and felt safe in her eyes. Now, as Simone is running, this is cut between Peter, who's experiencing a panic attack and feeling responsible for Simone's firing, and I would also imagine that he's thinking about his life becoming a living hell without Simone, who's made their life much easier since being hired. Now, Simone's made it to her destination, which happens to be at the Kell's estate, as she's out back and Peter sees her and goes after her. The moment where Peter finds her on the beach, it felt so surreal to me. It almost felt like it was a dream. But again, this goes back to the term siren or woman siren and using the Greek mythology of the creature who has the ability to luring men, as Peter tells her that he's going to get her job back. But we get this hyper-focused moment of Simone saying that she doesn't want her job back, but she does have something to tell Peter. And to me, this was the moment he knew that he found his new love of his life. We watch as Peter makes a call to his right-hand man, Jose, who's now in the car with Bruce, Devon, and the nurse, aka Ray, as Jose pulls the car aside to have a private conversation with Peter. Now, to everyone's surprise in the car, there's been another change of plans, and they're not heading to the ferry, but instead back to the Kell's estate, minus Ray, who has much bigger fish to fry after his side piece Devon and his wife spoke, and Devon pretty much confirmed their affair. as Ray tells them that he's going to find his own way back home to Buffalo. Now, Jose was told to retrieve the kissing photo from Kiki's not-so-hidden safe, as Jose now understands why Simone was fired, but he also knows that it's most likely that Simone is going to be Peter's new wife. Now, downstairs, Devon has a hard time finding Simone, so she decides to crash the big gala and confronts Kiki for firing her sister and catches the attention of all of the guests. Now, Devon calls Kiki all types of names, but calls her a murderer, which hits the hardest as we finally learn what happened to Peter's first wife. Jocelyn isn't dead. She wasn't pushed off a cliff by Kiki. Instead, she was left disfigured by a plastic surgeon after her divorce, which led her to becoming a recluse and hasn't been seen for over 10 years, and that's just the beginning of the conversation.
An injection hit an artery causing necrosis, which means that half of her face is dead flesh, and she's blind in one eye. It's very sad. She's in agony most of the time, and we try to respect her privacy by not speaking about her publicly.
Now, Peter pulls his wife aside to talk to her about what Simone told him on the beach, which was that Kiki had incriminating photos of him just in case she needed to use them as leverage, but they're now destroyed. Oh, it's important to remember that earlier in the season, we had the conversation between Michaela and her lawyer, and they were talking about her needing evidence of Peter committing adultery if she is to stand a chance of being in control if ever push came to shove and they were going to get a divorce. Now, in the kitchen, we see the couple having a back and forth conversation about the prenup and not being able to have kids and his relationship being broken with his kids. But the conversation is cut short after Simone comes down the stairs and is wearing the dress that Kiki had made for her. As it's clear as day to Kiki as to what's happening here, and it's that cycle continuing with Peter, who left his previous wife for Kiki, but is now going to leave her for Simone. Hey. This cycle of control and manipulation continuing with Peter, who's seamlessly transferring his affections and loyalty from Kiki to Simone. It's crazy to think that this whole time, Kiki was unknowingly creating another version of herself in Simone, but the much younger and less privileged version, but maybe the much more brutal version without her knowledge. Thinking about the times that Kiki would keep discovering something new about Simone once Devon arrived to the island, and she would ask her, "Is there anything else you haven't told me? Is there anything else you're hiding from me?" And Simone would say no. But little did Kiki know, Simone's been waiting for this moment to happen, and it's finally here. As we come to an end of this episode, we see Simone telling her older sister about this newfound love story between her and Peter, and it's in this moment that Devon's been thinking that Kiki was the monster this whole time, but instead, it's been her little sister. This reveal and shift leaves Devon horrified as she witnesses her sister embrace a dangerous path blinded by the allure of wealth and power. Devon sees this new version, or perhaps this was always been Simone deep down, or at least since she started working for Kiki, but regardless, you can see that Devon doesn't like who she sees in front of her. I'm thinking about the state of shock Simone was in the middle portion of this episode after being fired. It was almost like she died inside, and once her dad said that they were going to be living together again, it was almost like she killed a version of herself, and that triggered the events that we saw at the very end of this episode. As we see the sisters saying goodbye, but Simone makes it seem like they're going to be seeing each other again pretty soon, but Devon's response almost gives off the vibe that she believes that this might be the last time they're going to be seeing each other, as we watch Simone walks on stage with Peter, who's now in love with her, and she accepts this new relationship in this life. Our final moments has Devon being told by her father that she's a good person, and he'll always remember that, as Devon sees Kiki on the ferry, and they share this understanding that they've misjudged one another and they probably have more in common than they thought, as they both have accepted this new life path they're about to go on. But again, Devon realizes that Kiki wasn't the monster she thought she was this whole time, but instead the monster's back on the island. To me, the ending of Sirens felt deliberately ambiguous, leaving you to ponder the fates of each character. In that final scene of Simone glazing out in the ocean, to me, symbolizes this vast uncertainty that lies ahead. So overall, I found the finale to be pretty par for the course as far as what led up to this point in this ending, but now let's get into my thoughts of the limited series overall. First off, I've never watched a full episode of the hit series Desperate Housewives, but I've seen clips and I've seen moments of episodes. But I would say Sirens to me was a mix of Desperate Housewives meets a lesser version of The White Lotus. You have these rich people dealing with their problems that they've created by themselves, and at its core, I found this to be a story about power, class, female complexity, and the problem people face when they don't take accountability or when they use money to cover up their issues or they choose to run away from their problems. Now, my hook to watching this show was the talent involved. Now, I've been a fan of Julianne Moore and Kevin Bacon as long as I can remember, but I've recently become a huge fan of both Meghann Fahy after her standout performance in The White Lotus Season 2 as Daphne, and after seeing Millie Alcock as young Rhaenyra Targaryen in House of Dragon, I couldn't be more excited for her to be Supergirl, so those actors were my entry point and were the reasons I kept watching this show. Now, I'll be honest, I did struggle at times to get through the earlier parts of the show because it was almost impossible to find a character who was either not annoying or just flat out a terrible person, including our lead character, Devon. Look, I'm down for a character dealing with their highs and lows of life, but the first few episodes, I couldn't stand Devon because she was just like this agent of chaos and seemed to always look for the most difficult way to make life difficult for herself, and she was the main source of her issues that she was dealing with. Now, to a lesser degree, I felt similar to this disconnect that I had with someone like Simone or someone like Kiki as well. But luckily for me, it was episode 3 that really kind of reshaped the narrative in a way and positioned the characters in a somewhat new perspective, one that made me understand their actions from the previous episode and moving forward. Also, by episode 3, the story being about appearances and deceiving people, and the line between savior and manipulator were becoming more and more blurred with every passing moment of our 3 central characters. Now, even though she turned out to be the quote-unquote evil person or the bad guy or the monster of the show, I really did like the slow discovery of learning what happened to Simone at a young age and how her mother and dad and sister and mentor and Michaela all have shaped her into the person that we saw at the end. Also found some of the more comedic humor to work for me for the most part, besides the more kind of outlandish elements of people acting completely childish or unrealistic at times. Also like how the show played with the idea of having the audience thinking that maybe Kiki does have a supernatural ability or maybe the island is haunted or something. I really like how the tone was strange at times, also mixed in with this kind of eerie score, and you didn't know if someone would end up dead at some point in the show, but again, the show never really got that dark. Also like how the show played with the mystery genre, whether it was what the hell's going on with Kiki, is there a possible cult situation going on, did Kiki kill Peter's wife, what happened to the sister's mother, and again, what if someone was going to end up dead at some point. Now, even though I wasn't always engaged with every single plot point and sometimes things got a little bit too silly for me, like again, it kind of dove into those Desperate Housewives vibes, and I also at points couldn't stand the characters and the decisions they were making. Overall, I would say that I enjoyed my experience watching this and I enjoyed the overall performances by the cast. Last thing I'll mention about the cast, I like how it subverted my own expectations by thinking that someone like a Devon and a Kiki were the bad guys, but in reality, it was actually Simone who you felt bad for and Peter who came off as like this reasonable guy, but at the end of the day, you can never judge a book by its cover. By the way, I wonder how Ethan's going to take the news about Peter and Simone being in love. Now, as we come to a close, to me, I look at this series Sirens as a somewhat compelling exploration of how societal structures, class divisions, and the pursuit of power can corrupt individuals and fuel destructive relationships. It was a story about the choices women make and often seeks to define them and the consequences they face when they dare challenge the established order. So there you have it, my thoughts on the finale and my overall thoughts of the limited series Sirens. Now, I want to hear what you all thought about Sirens. What were your standout moments? Whether it was a character, a particular plot, or an episode, what did you like, love, what didn't you like about the show? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. I want to thank you all for watching this in its entirety on YouTube. If you can, hit that like button. Please hit the share button on this breakdown and consider sticking around by subscribing today. Same goes for my audio listeners out there, because this will be uploaded on my podcast feed on Apple and Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please follow my podcast and leave your thoughts about this show in the comments below as well. Thank you all again for watching or listening. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.